Hey everybody, Derek here to bring you another video for The Walking Dead Season 6. And what this video is going to be doing is giving my mid-season premiere death predictions, just for the mid-season premiere. There's been a lot of talk about the episode, some of the things about the story, and some of the things about what people have been saying about it in articles, and I wanted to give my impression, to let you know what I think might happen, and to give my thoughts on which characters may die in the upcoming mid-season premiere. If you are not caught up with the television show or with the comics, this video will contain spoilers from both. So if you don't want to be spoiled, then exit the video now and come back later, because otherwise you will be spoiled. Okay, so a lot of people have been labeling this episode as the Valentine's Day Massacre, because it's taking place on February 14th, which is Valentine's Day, of course. And, a lot of people have been saying that there will be several character deaths in this episode, which doesn't really surprise me. We haven't really had a lot of character deaths at the beginning of the season. We had Nicholas and Deanna and a couple of other Alexandria residents, but other than that, nobody really major, which I'm not complaining. If there's a reason to keep the characters alive, I say go for it. I enjoy every character, and to see any of them die is a really sad thing. But you also cannot deny that, death is a part of the Walking Dead world. With all these threats with the walkers, with, groups of people trying to kill each other, the death toll on the show can tend to be high at times. And, there's a couple of things coming up in the television show from the comics that really makes me think that we have a lot of cast members on the show, and, it's almost like you have to kill some of them off in order to introduce new people. We have the Hilltop, we have the Saviors, we have a couple of stories that are coming up. And, it does make sense that some other characters would get killed off in order to make room for these new people. So it does make sense to me. Plus, just the simple fact of where we left off, I mean, Alexandria being overrun by walkers, it's bound to happen that some people are going to get bitten, shot, eaten, something like that is going to happen. Plus, you have, the wolf taking off, and who knows, we might even see Daryl, Sasha, and Abraham. So there could be a lot of things going on in this episode. And I'm going to give my thoughts on who I think may die in the episode. And I'm going to give that first impression with, between Rick's group and the Alexandria residents. And, I really don't think that they're going to kill off many of Rick's group in this episode. Maybe not even any. At most, I would think one. And I've really been kind of looking at it a little bit. And there's been some spoilers released about scenes coming up on the show, which include various different characters, and I'll tell you those, but just a warning again, this is spoiler information as well, so if you don't want to know, I'd also exit the video at this point as well. But we know that Rick, Carl, and Michonne aren't going anywhere, and there's been reports that Daryl, Glenn, Maggie, Sasha, we also had Carol, and even Morgan shooting scenes later on in the season, which, would seem to indicate that none of them would die if those reports are true. I've also heard Rosita is going to be around as well. So really, there are a lot of Rick's group, still around later on this season. So I think that it's more going to be the Alexandria residents that get killed versus Rick's group. And I'm going to let you know who I think those people could be. And I think we'll see as many as 4 or 5, maybe even more depending on the circumstances. And to first start, I really think that at this point, there's really more evidence that Sam, Jesse, and Ron will all die in the mid-season premiere. If you're familiar with the comics, you'll know that, Rick, Carl, Michonne, and, Ron, Jesse, who were there. No, there was no Sam, and I believe it was also Dr. Denise was the other person. They all left the house with, the sheets over themselves covered in walker guts, and Ron, gets bitten. Whether it's because he made a sound, whether it's because there wasn't enough guts on him, whatever happened, he starts to get bitten. And then Jessie goes and tries to save him, but she also gets bitten. She's holding on to Carl's hand and she won't let go. And Rick basically turns around and sees this, and in order to save Carl, because Jesse and Ron are already gone, Rick chops off Jesse's arm, and Jesse, ends up being killed by the walkers. There is more evidence, in my opinion, that this is going to happen, and this is based off the trailer that they showed just recently, with Rick and the group, Rick saying, "I thought we could live behind these walls, but now we can't." That promo. And I'll show you some images here. If you look at one of the images from the trailer, you will see that it specifically shows that Carl and Jesse are holding hands. Coincidence? I think not. We are clearly seeing this is Carl's hand and this is Jesse's hand. So we know that the two of them are going to be holding hands as they keep going, because they all joined arms so that nobody could, flee. In a sense, they all stayed together. So that made sense. And then that way nobody would get lost. Well, there's another scene that is really starting to make me think that they actually showed it in the trailer, and it's right at the end, and it's right here. If you'll notice, you see Rick, okay, and you see that Rick is wearing his sheet with blood on it and walker guts, so he is still wearing it. Other scenes in the trailer, I believe they don't show him wearing it. He's just wearing his shirt. And you'll notice that he's got the hatchet in his hand, and he brings it up, and he, hits it on something. You're made to think that maybe it's a walker. Well, if you look very carefully right near the right corner of your screen, you'll see that it almost looks like skin. And in my opinion, it does look like skin, and it does look like an arm. And I believe this is Jesse's arm. I believe that this is the moment when Rick cuts it off. I believe that they showed it right at this moment in the promo, and this is the moment that it happens. So I think that it's going to happen, and I think that that's the scene right there. Because I can imagine, everything slowing down. Like, how things may go at normal pace time, but your perception of it, is at a slower or faster pace depending on what's going on. Well, I think that Rick is really going to go into that moment of everything's going to slow down. He's going to see things happening, and then he just makes the decision to cut Jesse's arm off, because it looks like the scene goes slow, and then we just all of a sudden see it really speed up as he cuts down. And I really think that it's on Jesse's arm. So I think that's the scene right there, and it really gives me hard evidence that this is going to happen. Now, as a result of that, I could see things going in different ways, but I think that Ron, at this point, is then going to take Douglas's story in the comics, and he will shoot at Carl. Maybe he intends to kill both Rick and Carl. Maybe he just intends to kill one or the other, and Carl gets in the way, or Rick, But I think he's going to turn around and try to shoot Rick or Carl or both, and that's when Carl is going to get his facial injury, and then as a result, either the walkers are going to get him as well, or Rick might kill him, or maybe even Michonne, who was with them, might kill him. I could see that happening. I just don't see a story where Ron survives without both of his parents and his brother. I don't see that happening. So I really think that they're going to end that story right there, and Ron will get eaten as well. Some other people that I think might die could be anywhere from Tobin, Bruce, or Scott. Because these three guys are dead in the comics, and it's around this time period. Scott actually dies from his leg infection that he gets in the comics earlier than when this happens. But as far as we know, he's still, in the infirmary healing. So, part of me wonders that maybe the walkers might break in there, Scott might wake up. might try to fight, but of course he's got, the leg wound, and maybe the walkers might eat him. That might be used for some grisly scene. Or maybe the wolf might kill him. I could see a situation where, to get his wound treated, he might take Denise to the infirmary. Now, I could see that going multiple ways. It might not go that way at all. I would not be surprised, but there is a good chance that with Scott being wounded and the fact that he's already dead in the comics does give a good argument that he might be one of the individuals that dies in the mid-season premiere. Maybe, maybe not. We'll see. Bruce, if you remember from season 5, episode 14, was the guy that had to send a fax to Cleveland. That's his famous quote that he said. In the comics, he looks a lot different. He's got a big beard. I think he might have longer hair, too. I'm not sure. But anyways, when the walkers first start to come in the area, they were fighting them off, and Bruce ends up getting bitten in the neck area, and Abraham has to put him down. I don't think that's going to happen anymore with Abraham being out with Daryl and Sasha, but it may be that he dies as well. We have a lot of, the rumor that a lot of people might be dying. They may not even be, the most significant of individuals, but it may just be that there's so many, even with background characters, that it seems like a lot. And it would not be surprising if they, throw him into the mix and kill him off as well. So we'll see what happens. And then Tobin, again, is another possibility. And he's been a little bit more significant than some of the other Alexandria residents. Not maybe to the extent of Deanna, Spencer, and the Andersons, but, he's had quite a few parts. Rick has really relied on him quite a bit to help him out with the walkers at the beginning of the season with building up the wall. So Tobin is definitely very important to Alexandria, and of course he also dies at this time in the comic books as well. So, again, depending on how the circumstances go, part of me thinks that they might try to do some kind of a story where they try to block off the hole that was put in the wall, and maybe Tobin tries to drive the truck the Del Arno food truck that they drove in. I would not be surprised that they try some kind of plan like that to corral the walkers in or prevent more from coming in, and maybe at that point Tobin gets eaten while he's doing that, because in the comics, he dies while backing a pickup truck against the wall to keep it, up. And at that point, the walkers break the wall down, and then he gets eaten. So maybe he might die in that similar way. There may be this organized plan on Rick's part to go around to get the Alexandria residents to rally them in a fight, but to also block off the hole in the wall. That might be a possibility too. So I think we might see a lot of different things there, but Tobin may die as a result. I think more likely than not, the wolf will also die. If you want more of a description of what might happen with him, watch my previous video that I recorded about that, because it pretty much covers the different possibilities for him, but I don't think he's going to survive the episode unless they decide to extend the story into the 10th episode, but it's not looking likely in my opinion. We'll see what happens, but I don't think he has much longer for this world. Denise, I'm going to put it a 50-50 chance. I think that there's arguments to keep her alive, but I also think that there are reasons where her character might die. Let me give you a little bit of background from the comics, and this actually happens later, but again, this is spoilers for you. Later on, the Saviors and Rick's group at Alexandria and the Hilltop and the Kingdom, who will later be introduced, they all go to war with the Saviors. And there comes a part when Negan leads the Saviors against Alexandria, and they throw grenades over the wall to attack Rick's group, and Heath gets his leg blown off. Now, in the comics, Heath and Denise are in a relationship, a physical, intimate relationship. That doesn't seem very likely to happen now with Denise kissing Tara. It may indicate that there may be some kind of future there, may indicate Denise might be a lesbian, so they may be going in a different path than they would be going in the comics. But basically, the Saviors release Holly, who is a character from the comics, she has more of a prominent role than she did in the TV show. They release Holly, into the community. They thought that Holly was just a prisoner because Holly ends up getting captured by the Saviors. Well, it turns out that they killed Holly, the Saviors did, and she's a walker. And when they take the bag off of her head, she bites Denise on the arm. Now, the only way that she can save Heath is if she has both of her arms. So she saves Heath's life after that grenade blew his leg off, but as a result, she dies of her bite. What if they do the same thing here except with Carl? Because more likely than not, Carl's going to get shot in the face. We don't know whether it's going to be by Ron. I've heard some rumors it might even be the Wolf that does it. But we know more likely than not, Carl is going to get shot. And somebody's going to have to save him. Well, who's the only person left? Denise. So, again, I could see a situation where, Denise gets away from the Wolf, or maybe while it's happening, she gets bit, and they take her back to the infirmary, and they meet up there with, Carl and Rick and them, who, Carl would have his eye blown out, and, Rick sees that she has the bite, and instead of, saving herself, she saves Carl. She decides to do this. Now, maybe it might be a bite that we might see happen. We may not see the bite happen, kind of like with Deanna. We might not see the bite until after everything's done, and she reveals it later that she sacrificed herself to save Carl, because we realize that she has some confidence issues, that we saw throughout the first half of season 6, and this may be a way to bring her character full circle. That she is able to save Carl, but at her own expense. But it shows her becoming braver, and it really is her making the ultimate sacrifice, which is something that she's wanted to become better as a doctor and as a person. So I could see that happening as well. But there's also an argument that she might survive. I would not be upset if she did. I think she's a very interesting character. She has a lot of story that I think they could do with her. But I could see it going either way. Plus, with the Hilltop coming up, it may be more of an argument to get Carl to the Hilltop, because Carl actually goes to the Hilltop in the comics. But maybe Carl might not be totally healed, so Rick might be more willing to trust Jesus Monroe if Dr. Harlan is at the Hilltop like he is in the comics. Maybe this is a factor that gets Rick to trust Jesus, because maybe Carl won't be healed yet. And that might, if Denise is dead, then it may, give them more reason to go to the Hilltop. So I could see that happening as well. But we'll have to see. Out of Rick's group, really the only one that I could even see them possibly killing in this episode would be Gabriel. I think the other characters have some stories coming up, but, I wouldn't be surprised if he did survive, but it also would not surprise me if he died, because he really doesn't have a lot of story after this part in the comics. He really just shows up here and there, and does the show really want to do that with the character? Maybe, maybe not. But, it would almost seem like it's out of place to kill him, because he really hasn't had much to do for the start of the season either. So I think that could go either way. And we'll just have to wait and see what the episode reveals. But I think the only person from Rick's group at this point, based on the spoilers, based on the information I've heard from other people, the only one that I think is in danger of dying in the mid-season premiere is Gabriel. So we'll see what happens. And with that, those are my predictions. Let me know what you think. You think I'm on the right track? You think that there might be other people I didn't consider? Let me know. Feel free to subscribe. I do have more videos coming. And if you have any suggestion for future videos that you would like to see, don't be afraid to suggest them. Have a wonderful evening, and thank you very much for watching.